nothing more. To him, she was nothing now. Eleanor squeezed Lady Anne's hand. How could she know what Lady Anne felt when Lady Anne had never let anyone in? Lady Anne insisted that telling Eleanor would not fix anything. But Eleanor was certain that things might change, and that Lady Anne could not see everything clearly by herself. Eleanor explained that she could not fix Lady Anne's problems, but she could tell her something she seemed completely blind to. She had been speaking nonsense from the moment the conversation began, because Eleanor had seen it with her own eyes. The way Lord Adlacion looked at Lady Anne with such gentle eyes, the way he watched her the entire time Eleanor visited the mansion, how he seemed genuinely happy that Lady Anne had found a friend. People, including gods, feared him, yet his gaze softened only for her. Eleanor told her firmly that there was no way she was nothing to him. Lady Anne looked up, hope flickering in her eyes. She said she was not Adlacion's reincarnated saint. Eleanor argued that she could not say that for certain. The story said the girl returned only when Adlacion became human, and that she always remembered her past life. Only the two of them would ever truly know. If Lady Anne did not remember, she could not deny it either. And besides, Adlacion clearly cared for her now. That alone meant something. Lady Anne stared at Eleanor in disbelief. She told her she was simple-minded, and what if she was wrong? Eleanor declared that if that were the case, she would throw a too-bad party to cheer Lady Anne up. Lady Anne finally smiled. If that happened, Eleanor would take full responsibility, and she was not going to talk her way out of it. Eleanor groaned about the unfairness of it, which made Lady Anne giggle. Back at the temple, Eleanor's words echoed relentlessly through Rosalie's mind. She could not shake them. Her friends whispered behind her back. They laughed at her. She knew she was the true saint chosen by her god, even if he never appeared. Even if they had spoken only once, she was certain of it. That one time, Loufre had been in Eleanor's room. She had been searching for him everywhere. There had to be a mistake. Lord Loufre would never betray her. She was the real saint. Slowly, Rosalie formed a single conclusion. Eleanor was trying to steal Loufre from her. That was something she would never forgive. Meanwhile, Crowley sat by his window, staring out at the trees that trembled under a rising darkness. He could feel corruption gathering in the distance, thicker and far more vicious than anything Eleanor had purified before. If she tried to take it all in, her body would not endure it. Yet if she did nothing, the outcome could be much worse. He forced himself to think positively. She had pushed through every crisis before. She would do so again. His thoughts scattered when Eleanor burst into the room. She arrived like a sudden gust of wind, bright-eyed and brimming with excitement. Her abrupt entrance startled Krail so badly that he jumped to his feet, asking if there was danger or something urgent happening. Eleanor grinned and told him to follow her outside. To his confusion, she announced that they were having a tea party. She had arranged a little table and several chairs beneath the shade of the trees. The idea had come from Lady Anne, who wanted to return the favor for everything Eleanor had done. Today she wanted to host the gathering herself so that Eleanor's god could relax freely without the eyes of half the temple staring at him. Eleanor insisted Kral join them, but he hesitated. His presence usually made people uncomfortable. Still, he followed, and to his surprise, the tea party was rather enchanting. There were colorful pastries, fragrant teas, and delicate fruit tarts set carefully on lace cloths. It looked like something out of a storybook. Eleanor turned to Lady Anne and joked that she must not know what relaxing meant. Lady Anne immediately argued that she had planned everything perfectly and this was not overdone at all. She also explained that since Lord Adlacion was away today, she wanted to steal a chance to hear Eleanor's thoughts without interruption. Loufre appeared with a sigh, dramatically complaining that he was tired of being used as the pack mule. He turned to Kral with a friendly smile and assured him the comment was not aimed at him. Crowley quietly asked if he was out of place, but Loufre waved the thought away and told him he was fine. If anyone was out of place, it was him. After all, what kind of god got treated like a donkey? Eleanor and Lady Anne instantly snapped at him, reminding him that being invited to the tea party did not give him permission to call them by their nickname. They also pointed out that they never once allowed him to compare himself to a donkey. The arguing soon melted into laughter, and in no time the three were chatting away. Kral, however, slipped aside for a moment to quietly observe from a distance. Eleanor's peaceful moment shattered when an uninvited girl marched up to her. She snapped that Eleanor had been missing for hours and everyone had been looking for her. Not only that, but rumors were spreading that she had been seen with Loufre. Eleanor turned around to prove the girl wrong, only to see that Loufre had conveniently vanished. The girl refused to drop the subject. She accused Eleanor of flirting with him, repeating gossip Rosalie had spread. Eleanor stood abruptly and demanded why she would ever flirt with Loufre. She barely tolerated him as a friend. The girl pressed on, saying Eleanor had been caught secretly meeting him and that people claimed he had been alone with her in her room. Eleanor protested that Loufre had barged in without permission, but the girl did not believe her. She warned that if Rosalie saw Eleanor now, the trouble would be far worse than gossip. Their argument continued until the girl finally confessed that she was trying to protect Eleanor. Rosalie had been in a terrifying mood lately. If she saw Eleanor here, insults would be the least of it. Before Eleanor could respond, Rosalie herself arrived. Her presence cut through the air like cold steel. She looked angrier and darker than before, as if something poisonous had taken root inside her. She declared loudly that she was the one true saint and that everyone else was standing in her way. She called Lady Anne a counterfeit and accused Eleanor of shamelessly flirting with Lord Lufree. Then she turned on the girl Mari, calling her a traitor. Another girl rushed forward to stop Rosalie, but Rosalie shoved her aside. The girl tried to calm her, insisting she had nothing to worry about. She claimed Eleanor was just clinging to Lufree and that he was probably tired of her anyway. Her attempt to soothe Rosalie failed. Rosalie stared at her and said only, "You too then." Eleanor shouted for the girl to move, rushing in to push her out of harm's way. There was a deafening bang. In that instant, they all knew they should have run the moment Rosalie appeared. Lufree arrived in a burst of light to defend them, and for a moment Eleanor felt safe. He was ranked third, so surely he could handle this. But something was wrong. A violent force struck him and sent him flying across the field. He crashed into the ground near Lady Anne and groaned that he could not access his power at all. Eleanor hurried to Sophie, the girl she had pushed aside, trying to shake her awake. When she looked back at Lufree, confusion twisted in her chest. Why was he not doing anything? Why could he not fight back? Rosalie declared that she alone deserved to be loved and saved, and the gods should be the ones running to her side. Her voice dripped with possessiveness and madness. Suddenly, Eleanor heard Krail behind her. His voice was low and urgent. "Do not turn around." But it was already too late. Eleanor turned and saw nothing but a towering mass of darkness rising behind them. It loomed over her and Sophie like a living shadow, and its voice rumbled that it would never forgive them. Before she could reach him, Crowley rushed forward and blocked her path. He told her to leave Lufree behind. He said he could take the corruption into himself while everyone else escaped. Eleanor refused to accept it. Even Lufree had been helpless. How could Crowley face this alone? Crowley steadied her shoulders and told her it was his responsibility. If a god absorbed too much corruption, he would become a wicked god that harmed humans. He could not allow that outcome or allow this chaos to spread. He urged her to go. He said he did not want to hurt her. Eleanor felt tears spill down her cheeks as she begged him not to leave. She pleaded that they should escape together. Kral shook his head and quietly told her that she was only a stand-in. She did not owe him anything. Lufree's strained voice called from somewhere inside the darkness. He asked Eleanor what she was doing and reminded her that she could find a far better god than him. He told her the Tea Party had made it obvious. Her friends loved her. There were many gods out there who would treat her better. Kral added that although their time together had been brief, he had been truly happy with her. Eleanor snapped. She shouted at him to stop talking like that. She said she was not leaving him and she did not want any other god. She did not care if she was temporary or a substitute. She told him he was allowed to be selfish if he wanted, but right now she was his saint, and she was not abandoning him. Kral called her name, startled by the fierceness in her voice, but before anything more could be said, the world around them turned black. Lufree looked up through the shifting shadows, stunned. A brilliant light pierced through the darkness above. A figure stepped forward and the corruption recoiled from him. Lufree stared in disbelief. It was the Lord himself. Eleanor, who had felt the blast of energy, lay unconscious on the ground as the mysterious man reached out toward her. A warm glow spread from his hands and the blood staining her body vanished. Then he lifted her gently into his arms as if she weighed nothing at all. Every human who had ever wandered into this place took one look at the Lord, screamed and ran. The last time he had spoken to a human was so far in the past that even his memory had faded. He had grown used to the shouting, the stones thrown at him, the trembling fear in their eyes. Eventually he stopped feeling any of it. Their scorn no longer hurt. Their avoidance no longer bothered him. Even disappointment had dulled into something empty. He existed only to bear corruption. It was not a desire to protect anyone. It was simply what he had always done. The resentment inside him had been ignored so long it became silent. Sympathy and pity for humans had vanished even earlier. If he ever crossed the limit and became a wicked god that harmed people, he would not have cared. Hope, anger, sorrow, every delicate feeling he once had toward humans was long dead. Only resignation remained. And yet it had been about a month since that stand-in saint girl arrived. In those few weeks, something strange had begun to stir in him. For the first time in ages, he felt hints of happiness slip into his mornings. Looking back, everything had been unusual from the moment Eleanor appeared. Every day with her was noisy, chaotic, and reckless, but he had never once hated it. His long, numb routine of quietly absorbing corruption had been replaced with her laughter, her stubbornness, and her fearless way of standing beside him. Then he remembered the moment she refused to leave him, even when danger was swallowing everything around them. Her words had reached a place inside him he believed had died. Now he understood. This was what it felt like to want something again. He had thought all emotion toward humans was gone, yet here he was wishing for her safety. He wanted to protect Eleanor, not to endure corruption until he finally fell and became a wicked god. So Kral, now in his true form, a handsome man with pale hair and a quiet, steady gaze, lifted Eleanor into his arms and carried her away from danger. She eventually stirred, feeling as if she were drifting between dreams. When she looked up, she pressed her face against Kral's soft, blubbery skin. He had switched back before she woke enough to see what he really looked like. She poked his blob-like form with her finger and he told her it tickled. She thanked him for saving her. He admitted that he did not really understand what had happened himself, but what mattered was deciding what to do next. Eleanor looked around and saw the girls scattered across the ground, still unconscious. She asked the blob what they were supposed to do, guessing that waking everyone up should be their first step. So Eleanor went from girl to girl, shaking them gently back to consciousness. Once they all returned to the temple grounds, Kral explained what had happened. Lufre had grown weak from absorbing too much corruption, and he had been running from Rosalie because he simply could not overpower her magic. It was not that he refused to fight, he was unable to. Eleanor gave Lufre a smug look and told him he was acting far too proud for someone who collapsed so quickly. But it was not only Lufre. Most of the gods had been bearing corruption for so long their strength had nearly run dry. To make matters worse, many saints had been chosen through false revelations and the gods had grown disgusted, eventually refusing to appear before humans at all. Lufre grumbled that if Kral had cared so much about humans, he could have admitted it earlier. If that was the case, he would have abandoned this temple long ago. He complained loudly about how idiotic everyone here was. He grabbed Kral and squeezed him as if he were a stress toy, and Eleanor shouted at him to take his hands off her god. Lydianne rushed over at the perfect moment and reminded them that this was not the time to fight. Corruption appearing was bad enough, but a temple saint causing it was far worse, and Rosalie still had not woken up. How were they supposed to explain this disaster to the priests? They all understood the severity of the situation. Lydianne's shoulders drooped. She said it was her fault. She had been sent here to reform the temple, but instead, everything had collapsed even further. She muttered that maybe it was a blessing. Adlazanyun was not here right now. She needed to fix this before he returned. But before she could even take a breath, Adlacion appeared behind her. Lydianne froze and bit her lip. She asked why he was here. He was supposed to be on duty. Adlacion placed his hands on her shoulders and asked if corruption had appeared. He asked if she had been caught in it. Lydianne stared at the ground and apologized. She said all of this happened because she was weak and failed to notice Rosalie's condition. To her shock, Adlacion did not care about any of that. His eyes softened with worry. All that mattered to him was that Lydianne was safe. He asked her again if she was hurt or feeling unwell. Lydianne whispered that she was fine, but her face still showed how upset she was.
The story begins in the present. The former university student, Pia Rockwell, now 10 years old and having regained consciousness, finds her maid, Sarah, rushing to her bedside and asking if she has woken up. Pia had been lying dazed in bed, experiencing a high fever. Pia's mother, seated at a table, worriedly acknowledges that Pia's ailment is more than a simple cold, but insists that she and Pia's younger brother cannot afford to get sick too, suggesting Sarah handle the care for the day. During her dazed state, Pia's mind flashes back to her past life. She was a university student in Japan, getting her doctorate in paleontology. The shock that caused her reincarnation into this world was a devastating betrayal. In her past life, the girl in her memory was definitely her. She was interested in her research, which she had poured her heart and soul into. Her boyfriend, who only got close to her because of her research, callously revealed he was only interested in her research and was using her, calling her a lame girl and a gloomy nerd with her nose stuck in her work. He then took her research folder. Moments later, as she stood stunned, a robber appeared and demanded all her money. Realizing both her research and her boyfriend were gone, and that she had nothing left, Pia screamed in despair. This entire sequence of events left her with nothing good in her previous world. Back in the present, Pia is the Count family's daughter, living in a mansion on the outskirt of the royal capital of the Kingdom of Argivale. The Rockwell family manages a small, humble territory that doesn't stand out or make much wealth. Pia's family includes her father, a researcher who creates medicine for pest control, her mother, and her older brother, who is 5 years her senior. Despite her parents' political marriage, they get along well. Pia's maid, Sarah, hears her muttering about seeing a lump of iron shaped like a bird fly in the sky, and that the city has sky-high buildings, causing Sarah to panic and hurry to call the doctor, believing her mistress is saying strange things. However, Pia's mother, after asking if Pia had a nightmare, dismisses it, telling Sarah that the young miss has just been rambling nonsense for a while. Having recovered from her fever, Pia decides to leave the past behind and keep the memories of her previous life to herself. Sarah excitedly greets her, mentioning that Pia has a guest visiting today, to which Pia expresses surprise. The guest is revealed to be her fiancé, Rufus Stan, a marquis son and the same age as her, whose father is the Prime Minister of the Kingdom of Argivale. Rufus has brilliant ash blonde hair that sparkles in the light, smooth white porcelain skin, and round, clear emerald green eyes that still reflect innocence. Pia instantly recognizes him as a capture target from an Otome game she played in her past life called Caroline and the Rainbow Magic Sweets, Karamajai. She realizes she has reincarnated as the villainess in the game. Pia explains that in Karamajai, the heroine, Caroline, is raised as a commoner, but is later found by her true parents, Baron Ramsey. Caroline enrolls in the Super Elite Royal Academy in her 3rd year, which is where the game begins. The game features magical rainbow cookies that only Caroline can make, which alleviate the capture target's fatigue and allow the player to bond with the chosen hero. Pia remembers that in Rufus's route, Caroline served these cookies to Rufus, who was then a prime minister's assistant. Pia, as Rufus's unnamed, faceless fiancé mob character, saw this and threw the cookies away, shouting, "How dare you serve him something that hasn't been checked for poison?" Rufus was so angry at her reaction that he broke their engagement, condemned Pia in public at the graduation ball, and banished her from the country, saying he was blinded by love. Realizing the miserable fate that awaits her, Pia, who had grown comfortable with Rufus and even decided to support him for the rest of her life, pleads with Rufus to annul their engagement immediately. She is convinced that because the game is made for the heroine to conquer all the capture targets, her only future is public condemnation and banishment. She argues that annulling the engagement would be no issue, as her father could join the Prime Minister's faction, maintaining the balance of power. Furthermore, she states that because of her weak body, she would not be much use to the Marquis family anyway. Pia claims she is resolved to become a commoner, live a humble life, and attend the academy alone. Rufus acknowledges her resolve but asks for the real reason behind her sudden plea. He points out that she nearly fainted when she saw his face the other day. Pia, pressured, recounts her divine prophecy about the game's events, Caroline's debut, and Rufus being captivated by her, culminating in him condemning and chasing Pia out of the country. Rufus finds the prophecy absurd but notes that some parts sound realistic. Pia begs for time to find Caroline's family so she can live as a commoner before her engagement breaks. Rufus wonders how a lone young girl will make a living. Pia explains that in her past life, she was getting a doctorate in paleontology and could excavate fossils to build a museum, eventually holding tours and lectures. Rufus sees her passion for the plan and is silent. He suddenly declares that he will not break the engagement, stating that he has decided she is his one and only partner. He tells her to stay by his side and witness his loyalty. Rufus is hurt by the implication that he is a man who would be unfaithful and blinded by love. He acknowledges Pia's strong fear of the prophecy. Rufus proposes a bet. He will not break the engagement, and Pia is to remain his fiancée. Rufus proposes a bet to Pia, since she continues to challenge him. He stipulates that if he betrays her by the time they graduate from the academy and sides with the girl Caroline, he will pay her 100 million gold and grant her lifetime access to the Margate territory as reparation. Additionally, because Pia plans to excavate fossils, she will be permitted to keep whatever she finds there. Pia gasps, asserting that she cannot possibly pay such a vast sum if she loses. Rufus dismisses her concern, stating that if Pia loses, she owes him nothing, claiming the bet is purely a matter of his pride. Rufus tells Pia their engagement will remain until the bet's conclusion and asks her if the offer is acceptable. Pia notes that Rufus gains nothing if he wins, a point he reiterates is irrelevant to his pride. Pia realizes she must accept the bet because the Stan Margate territory is in the north, encompassing the whole Lusnan mountain range area, which reaches beyond Legend River to glacial lands and provides all-you-can-excavate mountains of fossil buffet. Rufus observes Pia's cautious nature, noting that she won't merely accept his word because she has been lied to and deceived before in her previous world. He agrees to draw up a written contract, and Pia asks for a pen and paper. Pia reviews the contract, observing that all the agreed-upon clauses are properly laid out in legal terms. She then questions Rufus about the necessity of a clause at the end, which stipulates that if the betrayal does not occur, she agrees to promptly marry him and move into his residence. Rufus smiles, asking if it isn't normal to marry after an engagement and if she truly read the entire contract despite being 10 years old. He insists on a reward for successfully breaking the prophecy, arguing the terms shouldn't only benefit Pia. Rufus justifies his demand, claiming that with her prophetic knowledge and inventiveness regarding fossils, a future of wealth and fame awaits her. He professes that he would never forgive himself if the royal family were to steal her away, declaring the marriage a necessary reward. Pia hesitates, finding the terms too favorable. When Rufus asks if she is unhappy with the contract, Pia blushes, lamenting that Rufus's beautiful handwriting makes her own look childish. Rufus, pleased that his handwriting has been praised for the first time, moves closer to Pia, saying he loves her sentiment very much. Pia resolves to immediately start practicing her handwriting. Rufus then embraces Pia, surprising her, and explains he will kiss her because they are engaged not only because of their families, but also by mutual feelings. He reaffirms that he has no intention of being an unfaithful man, swearing he will love only Pia as long as he lives, putting his pride on the line and never allowing a stranger to ensnare him. Rufus explains that his family enjoys gambling, and the more difficult the challenge, the more fun they find it. Pia observes that this expression is completely different from his previous demeanor, as if he has removed a mask. Since Pia is still recovering,